Hello everyone and welcome back to Great Tech Today, where my goal is to bring you tech reviews, specifically PC component reviews, in 10 minutes or less. I'm Will and today I'm bringing you an up-to-date review of NVIDIA's GTX 1080 Ti, specifically the EVGA GTX 1080 Ti SE2 model. And this video is sponsored by Be Quiet. So sit back and let's go. The NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti is NVIDIA's flagship model graphics card from the Pascal architecture that was released on March 10th, 2017. This card specifically followed the mid to upper range models like the GTX 1070 and GTX 1080 that were released earlier in May of 2016. The GTX 1080 Ti has been the top graphics card on the market since its release, as no other offering from rival AMD even came close to being able to compete with it. Also, when the cryptocurrency market began to boom, AMD's architecture made it the premier mining card, which meant that the supply would not be able to meet the demand of those cards, and therefore prices for AMD cards shot through the roof. And some NVIDIA cards did as well. However, this hurt AMD more so as they were more coveted and therefore more sought after. This made their prices increase substantially and exponentially compared to NVIDIA's cards, but NVIDIA's cards also began to increase a little bit as well, just not as much, and they were still more coveted because of the quality that you got from those cards. So with that being said, what is all the hype about this GTX 1080 Ti? Or should I say, what was the hype? So as we can see here, this GTX 1080 Ti, the EVGA GTX 1080 Ti SC2, was the premier card of the GTX 10 series cards. Out of the box, this card comes with a base core clock of 1556 MHz and can boost up to 1670 MHz. The EVGA GTX 1080 Ti SC2 also comes with 11 GB of GDDR5X memory clocked at 11,016 MHz effective and has a memory bandwidth of 484.4 GB per second. This card supports up to 4 monitors with up to 240 Hz refresh rate and can support a maximum resolution of up to 77,680 by 4,320. EVGA recommends a 600 watt power supply to power this card through an 8-pin and a 6-pin PCIe power connector. Today, I'm revisiting this graphics card to check its capabilities in early 2019 after numerous driver updates and several of the updates after the release of the newest RTX line of NVIDIA graphics cards to see how performance fares. For testing, I tested a suite of 7 games in a variety of genres. Each game was run through its included benchmark option, if that was available. If not, I played up to 15 minutes per session, 3 times, and an overall average was taken for each benchmark category: minimum, maximum, and average FPS. Each game was tested at their highest settings at 1440p resolution with FXAA enabled or turned off depending on if the game utilized it or not. No other anti-aliasing option was enabled. The card was tested on my Intel Core i7-8700K system clocked at 5.1 GHz with 16 GB of 3200 MHz G-Skill Trident Z RAM in dual channel configuration. This system is on the ASRock Z370 Extreme 4 motherboard powered by the Be Quiet Straight Power 11 1000 watt 80 plus certified gold fully modular power supply and is built inside of the Be Quiet Silent Base 801 windowed PC case. Of note, during testing, this card maintained a boost clock of 2000 MHz. So now, with all of the specifics out of the way, let's get to testing. And here is just a quick chart of what the test methods were, as I explained previously. The gaming test suite consists of Battlefield 1, Far Cry 5, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Just Cause 3, Madden 19, and Rise of the Tomb Raider. In my bevy of testing, the results across the board were still quite impressive on this nearly 2-year-old card. As will be seen shortly, this card held up very well and will give you quite a playable gaming experience even at maximum settings at a very high resolution of 1440p. First up in my 7-game suite of games was Battlefield 1. This game has never been too difficult on any card to play, and there's no exception here as the 1080 Ti steamrolled EA's offering with a minimum of 108 FPS, maximum of 167 FPS, and an average of 142 FPS. So, no slouch even at 1440p. Next up, I tested Far Cry 5, a game that most say is more optimized for AMD hardware, and that is very believable given AMD's logo is plastered on the opening scenes of the game, and AMD partnered on this game. So how did it fare on an NVIDIA card and Intel processor? Well, fairly well actually. At a minimum of 93 FPS, maximum of 120 FPS, and an average of 104 FPS, this card held up quite well, and the gaming experience was fantastic. This game is absolutely beautiful. Fortnite was next, and it is a game that can be handled by pretty much any graphics card 4 years old or newer, and possibly a little older. With our settings maxed out, I got a minimum of 107 FPS, maximum of 140 FPS, and an average of 124 FPS. Not too bad at all. One thing I will note that I find interesting is the fact that Battlefield 1, which to me looks more visually stunning, ran at a higher frame rate than Fortnite. Grand Theft Auto 5 ran quite well on this card as well, with a minimum of 68 FPS, maximum of 189 FPS, and an average of 158 FPS. The 1080 Ti absolutely killed this older offering. Just Cause 3 was up next, and this game is a very well optimized game and looks great. The GTX 1080 Ti was able to run the game at 108 minimum FPS, 154 maximum FPS, and an average of 129 FPS. For the sports game in this suite, which is a great looking game too, Madden 19 ran extremely well with a minimum of 45 FPS, maximum of 229 FPS, and an average of 147 FPS. That minimum FPS, not real sure where that actually hit. I cannot remember. I don't really even see it in the gameplay, but I can assure you this game ran quite smoothly, and that dip was not noticeable in-game at all. And finally, one of the new additions to my game testing suite, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Another fabulous looking game. It also runs quite well on this card. GTX 1080 Ti managed 84 FPS minimum, 221 FPS maximum, and an average of 131 FPS. So, there you have it. The NVIDIA flagship graphics card still hammers games today. This card performs off the charts still and is quite the powerhouse. What isn't so great about the card is the price, at least for the new ones, given that NVIDIA aren't producing them anymore, which makes the price skyrocket. Currently, the cheapest card I could find of the GTX 1080 Ti, period, out of any card, whether reference or any of the AIB partner cards, was $850, and that was on Amazon, and it was this card actually for $850 over there on Amazon. When we take a look at this, and the overall average FPS across all the games tested in the suite was 134 FPS. That brings the cost per frame to $6.34 per frame. So is this card worth the price, even at $850? Right now, when you can spend maybe a little less, roughly $700, $800, depending on where you get it, an RTX 2080, which has newer technology to it, the tensor cores and all that stuff, is going to cost you about the same, going to give you the same performance. So I would take the newer architecture over the architectures. It's going to give you a little more longevity. So would I buy this card now at $850? Absolutely not. If you can get a used card on eBay or something for, you know, $300-400, maybe I'd go with max $500, then absolutely. But I would still say, if you're going to spend on a new card, do not buy this card. Instead, buy the RTX 2080. So outside of that, the card still performs great. So if you can get a good deal on it, go for it. I would not recommend getting a new version of this. So that's it for today. Thank you for stopping by. If you like what you see, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe and check back in later for more computer technology and PC component content. Thanks for stopping by.